My dad stole my college scholarship money and threatened to unalive himself because I was angry. I said, "Go ahead." For context, I am currently a college freshman. I am on a full ride to my university. Every semester, I get a check sent to my house to pay off my housing costs, which is about $9. My unemployed father got evicted from my old address because he wasn't paying rent, so my family started living in a hotel. I was questioning how they were paying for the hotel, considering it was $150 a night. Turns out, my father used my college check to cash out and pay for the hotel for 2 months. I begged him to pay off my college housing costs for 2 months straight. He lied to me, telling me that it was attached to some funds which were hard to get out. Very confusing, but keep in mind I have absolutely zero financial literacy, and my father never went into depth. I brushed it off, hoping that everything would work for the best. My college housing gave my father a deadline to pay off housing costs, November 1st. I was stressed for 2 months, unable to eat well, sleep, socialize, etc. If my dad doesn't pay it off, I may or may not have to drop out. When the deadline hit, I called my dad and asked him why he hadn't paid off my housing costs. He finally revealed that he used the check on the hotel we were living in. I was furious and I started interrogating him like a prosecutor. He blamed the family for being responsible for using my college money, not himself, and also blamed me. He lent me allowance money for 2 months, telling me that it was from my relatives when it was actually from my $9 housing check. I asked him why he would do this, and he said that he didn't want to stress me out. I cried telling him I worked way too hard in high school for me to drop out. I said that he owed me an apology 3 times over the phone, but he refused because he thought he had done nothing wrong since he was providing for the family. I asked him again, and he said sorry in a mocking voice. I told him that he was full of shoot, and he started saying that he wants to put a gun to his head and unalive himself, and it will all be on me. This is not the first time he has done that. I told him to do it, and I hung up. My mom called me, and I informed her about the situation. She told me to apologize to my dad, and I told her, as psychotic as I may sound, I have no remorse, especially after what he did. My mom threatened to disown me, but I somehow mended things with them for 3 weeks. It is currently Thanksgiving break, and my father still didn't pay off my check, and he said that he would get money Saturday to pay it off. My mom told me again to apologize to him after he paid my housing costs, and I said I would avoid conflict. But I think I'm way too stubborn to apologize, especially because I genuinely think I have nothing to be sorry for. My dad never fully apologized and made a joke out of me to the family. Now for a few comments. One commenter asked whose name was on the check, suggesting it could be fraud if it was mine. I replied that I wasn't sure because I never physically saw the check. It was mailed to my old address, and my neighbor gave it to my father, who cashed it out. Another commenter pointed out that my father stole my mail and cashed the check, which could be a federal crime. They suggested I talk to student accounts at my university and ask them to send my mail somewhere safer. I responded that I would love to, but my mother is an illegal immigrant, and if my dad goes to jail, she would have to return to her country. She said she would disown me if I reported him. I also have little siblings and don't want them to suffer. I think I will contact the school to put the mail somewhere safer, probably my dorm address. A commenter questioned if my dad was unemployed because he couldn't find a job or didn't want to work, and said it's not my responsibility to provide for the family. I replied that he's been unemployed for over 25 years because he doesn't want to work and has been leeching money all my life. Another commenter noted that if my dad is legal and my mom is not, they must not be married. They suggested marriage could help her citizenship status. I replied that they never married, and I think it's his way to keep her under control. Now for the update, 2.5 months later. Immediately after this happened, I managed to get a separate debit card without my parents knowing. I don't have a job now, but I'm looking to get one later on in the semester. I didn't go to the financial aid center because my dad somehow managed to pay me back, possibly through my grandmother's Social Security checks. Last December, after weeks of calling my father to make up for my scholarship money and pay me back, he finally sent me a check for $9. The check came in my dorm mail around midnight. I was asleep by then, and my dad was spam calling my phone to tell me it was in the mail. I didn't call him back until 1 in the afternoon because I had an exam that day. He started cursing at me, telling me how he couldn't sleep all night because I didn't answer my phone. I talked back and said, "The stress you put me through for 3 months by lying about my scholarship check is nothing compared to the stress you went through for a day." He started insulting me in every way possible, telling me that I was spoiled. I swore back, saying, "Are you effing serious?" And he hung up. Moments later, my dad made my mom call me because he didn't want to argue with me. She screamed at me, saying that I should always have respect for him as a father, and that I should apologize for swearing. I said that yes, I did swear at him, but he did too, calling me a bunch of slurs and whatnot. She also accused me of purposely ignoring them when I made it clear several times that I was asleep and had an exam at 9 in the morning, hence not calling them at midnight. I told her that we shouldn't even have this talk because he was clearly in the wrong in this entire situation, and any other kid would have gone to the financial aid center and my dad would have gotten in trouble. My mom misunderstood me for saying that I was going to report my dad. She had a mental breakdown and hung up. My dad called and told me to go ahead and report him because I would be going to jail instead of him because he sent me some of the money from the check, which is nonsense. I called him out on his nonsense, and he said that he was permanently severing ties so I could learn my lesson. He hung up. I didn't call them for a week until I realized that I didn't have a place to stay for winter break. My dorm closed. I swallowed my pride and called them back to apologize. They said they'll accept me back to the family. This honestly still keeps me up at night, but I literally didn't have a choice but to stay with them over break. Over break, they've noticed that I'm way more cold and distant towards them, and they still wonder why. Luckily, I got the $9 check from my university to pay for this semester's housing fees. The best thing that came out of this is that I ended up reconnecting with my estranged sister, F25. Long story short, my father financially abused my sister for years, maxing out her credit cards and leaving her $20,000 in debt. They cut all ties a year ago after my sister started dating a guy they didn't approve of. When I was on good terms with them, they painted her as the bad guy, telling me that she betrayed them by choosing her boyfriend over the entire family. I also didn't know that my dad financially abused her. Turns out she was in the same situation I was in and ended up dropping out because my dad didn't let her take out a student loan. I talked to my sister and she said that she was honestly glad that she severed ties with them because she's finally financially independent, even if she's not financially stable. We're closer than ever, and I probably consider her as a shoulder to lean on. Mentally, I'm really not doing well. I'm generally stoic, but this is taking a hard emotional toll on me because my family was my world. Before college, I always knew my father was insane, but my mother was my ride or die. I told her everything. I helped her through her marital problems. She told me everything. And the fact that she chose my hurtful, unemployed father, the man that she always talked about wanting to divorce, over her daughter is heartbreaking. She still expects me to be her armchair therapist, and she told me she wants me to act like how I did before. I told her over break that no matter what she does, she will never mend back the trust I had for her then. And my father, despite his flaws, I never expected him to use my check. He put such a huge emphasis on education and told me he wanted me to have the life he never had. And knowing he would sacrifice my education just so he could live in a fancy $150 hotel is very disheartening. Recently, I've been very isolated. I still talk to a few people. My grades are falling, and I haven't been eating or sleeping well. Maybe this situation should be a wake-up call for me, but I've come to the point where I'm completely apathetic about everything. I refrain from drugs, thankfully, but even so, I feel like my life is on autopilot. Now for a few important comments. One commenter suggested, lock your credit, get a P.O. box, make sure you have your legal documents. Then OP replied, if my dad gives me my legal documents, another commenter advised, the best thing you can do for yourself is to complete your education. Stay focused on school and strive to do your best. Make friends and maintain contact with your sister. Also, seek out counseling at your school. They can help you deal with your family issues. Good luck. Now for the 7-5-month update. As you may or may not know, I made 2 posts several months ago about my father using up my college money. I also want to clear up some confusion about the posts. 1. My parents are religiously married through the Catholic Church in another country, but they never got legally married because my dad doesn't want my mother to get a green card. 2. And yes, in some colleges like mine, the broken education system in America still uses checks, but most people use direct deposit. I'm glad to say that he no longer has access to my finances, and I am in low contact with them. Thanks to the advice of this subreddit, I got my social security card and other documents months before I left for college. I also managed to get my first job. I distanced myself from my parents, and I took a lot of time to reflect on them and their actions. They also distanced themselves from me after I finally put my foot down and refused to give them financial assistance. They said that I was self-absorbed, and once again, my father told me he would unalive himself if I didn't help him. And this time, instead of telling him to off himself, I told him that's a decision he would make and I can't be responsible for it. I realized no matter what I do, they'll never change. They will always be the type of people to financially leech off of others, using their unalived threats and weaponizing self-pity, but they're too emotionally stunted to see the faults of that. Their psyche is so twisted, and I spent a lot of time mourning for the parents I never had. They were never meant to be parents, but they're also people. Sometimes people like them exist. As for my mother, she completely turned her back on me and said that I was a TV villain for not giving my father the money he deserved for raising me and my siblings. I told her he was never emotionally present as a father, and neither was she. Not just from the unalived threats, but also by being a threat to our well-being. She used to treat me as a friend and therapist, but rarely as a daughter. She used me to complain about the emotional and mental abuse my dad inflicted on her. But at the same time, she was also the person to turn her back on me in a blink of an eye, if it meant protecting my father's feelings and making him happy. Sometimes, she went as far as to attack me or my siblings if we did anything to make him crossed. I guess I still have a lot of pity for her, considering that she is an illegal immigrant in a hurtful situation, but it doesn't outweigh the damage. It was impossible to communicate with her since he was her own little world. I don't think she really loved me or saw me as a person or a child, just an outlet for her emotional dysfunction. Recently, my mother called me and lied about my dad being ill so they could rake a couple of bucks from me again. I told them to find their own source of money and hung up. I check up on my little brothers every now and then. They're currently still living in the hotel. While their physical safety isn't harmed, I still struggle with the guilt of leaving them behind, and I'm unclear on what the future holds for them. This past year, I learned what it meant to be independent, not just financially, but to be free from the mental control of them and making those decisions for myself. Needless to say, I'm happier. I'm surrounded with good and caring people. My grades aren't great, but better, and I'm finally in a good place right now. In the end, everything's going to be all right. And even if it's not the end. Now for a few more comments. When asked if they got some or all of the money back yet, OP replied, "I got some of it back through a family friend. I'm working my butt off to make up for the remaining sum of money." Another commenter mentioned, OP needs to make sure her parents are not stealing her younger siblings' money for their benefits. Then OP responded, "My biggest fear in the future is that my parents will use my younger siblings for their benefit and leech off of them. From what I know, that's pretty much still happening with my older siblings. I don't really want to speak for them, but I think part of it is out of pity and sympathy for my mother. Their biological mother abandoned them, and my mom practically raised them as her own alone for 5 years, while my dad was doing drugs and philandering on the other side of the planet. All 3 of us have told her at one point to leave our father, but she doesn't want to. That, and because of my 2 younger siblings, if it weren't for them, they would have gone no contact with my dad a long time ago. Am I the idiot for exposing my lecturer's creepy behavior after he tried to ruin my academic career? I'm in my early 20s, and my lecturer is at least in his mid-30s. I work for a cleaning service that offers unclothed or lingerie-clad maid service. There's no intimacy or touching, and if boundaries get crossed, the client is struck from the client list. Clients can request a type, but they cannot pick a specific maid. Both client and maid have the option of using a fake name, and pictures of either party are not provided. Any institutions the clients and maids are linked to are also noted to prevent situations like this. Clients can request the same maid after the first session, but that's it. I got a message from the company saying a nearby and anonymous client had requested a lingerie-clad maid, and I was his type. I went in jeans and a t-shirt with lingerie underneath, knocked on the door, and my lecturer opened it. I realized what had happened and said that the agency typically filters these things out, but there was an error. I offered to stay and be professional or get him another maid, but whichever he chose, we should both just forget this. He asked for another maid, so I called the office, explained, and left. The office said due to computer human error, no one clocked that we are linked with the same school. I had to go into school a few days ago with some classmates and ran into him. He was awkward, uncomfortable, wouldn't look me in the eye, and refused to directly address me. We ran into him again later that day, and it was the same, if not worse. We also had some classes at the end of last academic year, after the mix-up, and I was similarly ignored, though I attributed this to the online format of the classes. This would just be one of those things, except I have classes with him all next year, as well as private meetings to discuss my studies. These meetings are compulsory and can affect my grade. While I know I can act professionally, I'm concerned that he cannot, as it has been several months and he is still not past it. I'm putting a lot of time and money into this, and if this is indicative of how he will act for the remainder of it, I feel I will not get what I paid for and that my grade will suffer. I do not know how best to progress. I cannot afford to let my grade come to harm. But talking to him might make things even worse. Any advice? Now for a top comment. A commenter said, "Clearly a lot of the people giving you advice here don't work in academics. I do. For the love of God, don't put anything in writing unless you actually want to get him fired. He is not going to give you a bad class participation grade if he is the one preventing you from participating by ignoring you. As for meetings with him, just meet for your degree the way you would if this had never happened. If you treat this brusquely and professionally, he will eventually too. If you must address it at the end of your meeting while you're leaving, say, 'I would really appreciate it if you would keep what I do for a living to yourself.' Obviously, I am giving you the same professional courtesy. I would love it if we could pretend that incident never happened. Don't put anything in writing. For the love of God, do not show up to his house again, even to leave a note in his mailbox. That's how you progress into stalking. Don't do anything crazy to make him notice you in class. Offer to participate the way you always would. Do your meetings with him as if this never happened." Now for the update a month later. He reported me. I booked a meeting with him during office hours to clear the air as suggested in my last post, and then followed it up with an email that simply said that as school is starting up again and it's my final year, I'd like a chance to meet with him to talk about my dissertation and make sure he approved of the topic before I launched into it. This is completely standard, and everyone else is doing it, but it was somehow enough to panic him. The maid service I work for also offers completely clothed maids, so from what I can gather, he's gone to the university saying he paid for a fully clothed maid and only went through this service because of their extensive vetting. But when I showed up, I offered to do it naked in exchange for extra help on my dissertation. He said no. Obviously, this is nonsense, and I got the recording of the phone call I had with work and gave it to the university, which was enough to stop the investigation. However, I couldn't get his payment records to prove he paid for lingerie due to the anonymous payment system, and any more than that would require a legal case, which I can't afford. Even if I did manage to stay here, I would still have to be in his classes, as they are mandatory. But at the same time, my university has basically said that they can't put me in his classes after this because I have essentially been accused of sexually harassing him. He must have reported me the second I sent in my meeting request, because I got the email from the person dealing with this literally less than a week later. I have no clue what he's thinking. I'm assuming he thought I would report him and decided to get ahead of it, but even that makes no sense, as all I did was request a meeting. Whatever his logic, I am dropping out. I am 1 year off completing my degree, so I've submitted some inquiries about transferring to nearby universities. But because this has happened right at the start of a new school year, it's going to be 10 times harder than it would be if this happened over summer or last year. The only upsides are that I've not actually been expelled/suspended, so I won't need to explain this to anyone. The university seems fine to just let me go quietly, and another lecturer is writing me a reference. The agency has also said they will blacklist him, and they share this info with other services, so hopefully he won't be able to do this to anyone else. Just Jesus Christ. Adding that I have had a free consultation with a lawyer and will not be pursuing legal action. In the best case scenario, where I win, my name is cleared, and I can stay in this university, my profession will still be outed. I will be shunned by classmates and staff members alike, and my lecturer will continue to be a weenie. I'll be staying at a university that has confirmed they will throw me under a bus to save a weaselly prick. Even the best case scenario will also earn me a black mark next to my name in academic circles. Now for an update 3 years later. There's not really much to add. I'm at another university, feeling super supported, doing a PhD and building my career. The lecturer who ratted me out is still teaching, but when people went back to classes properly post-COVID, I put his name on the creep list, an anonymous Google Doc the women at uni shared of men to avoid. About 4 different people vouched for him being a creep, so at least they know who to avoid. I'm safe and happy at another uni with a straight woman and gay man supervising me, both of whom went to bat for me when another, separate lecturer made a pass at me. I feel like the overwhelming reaction to my story was just, well, that's depressing. And I wish I had a non-depressing update, but that's how academia works, I guess. C'est la vie. But I do want to say that when Shane read the comments from my post, he read one that I listened to at the time saying, "Don't make a paper trail because I'll get him fired. PSA, make the paper trail." I really regret listening to that guy, which I only did because he said he was in academia. Assuming it's a guy, because that's advice a guy in academia would give. I would still have had to leave the uni, even with a paper trail, and I'm probably better off at my current uni than I was at my old one. But if I'd made the paper trail, they probably would have at least refunded part of my tuition, and I wouldn't be scraping to fund the PhD now. Now for a few important comments. A commenter said, "Glad you're doing well, and that people at your old uni know that the lecturer is a creep. Sucks that he still has a job, though." I replied, "Yeah, I'm glad I'm doing well, too. I would love to be able to say that something worse happened to him, but the consequences of his actions are literally just a Google Doc." What shocked me was the other women who vouched for him, as in saying they also had weird experiences with him, because I honestly thought it was just me. Hopefully, one day he'll be creepy to the wrong woman. But hearing my words from like 3 years ago read out to me while I was on the treadmill is definitely making top 3 weirdest moments of my life. LMAO. Another commenter said, saying don't make a paper trail because I'll get him fired, and PSA, make the paper trail. That comment is terrible. You're totally correct. Anyone who has dealt with any sort of scary, bad, uncomfortable situation, whether in the workplace, school, or just in life, always make a paper trail. Document everything, even if it's small. If you have to take it to a boss, school leader, police, etc., the best thing you can do to have a situation taken seriously and rectified is to have some sort of tangible proof that something has happened by documenting and listing whatever the issue is. Even if it's verbal comments that you don't have audio proof or witnesses for, you have more luck being helped if you have made notes of those comments over time than if you just go in saying, so-and-so said this. Glad you're in a better place now. I replied, yeah, I just never expected to be in that situation. So when the top comment was like, hi, I'm in academia and here's what you do, I just went with it. If I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be document everything. Hearing the comments read back, I got mad all over again, but mostly at myself for just going with what I was told back then. I even dug up the post, and there were multiple people telling me to be careful that I don't upset him because I had the power in that relationship, which is just wild to me now considering how everything turned out. But at the time, I fully went with it. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have even made the update if I wasn't so annoyed at those commenters. And Shane reminded me how annoyed I was when he read them out. Mayo. Thank you. Then another commenter said, holy shoot, I remember this one and finding it insane. That guy was for sure a creep, and I was pissed to hear he had tried to blame you, but at least other people know to avoid him, thank God. Hoping you've been feeling better at this new uni. I replied, I'm doing so much better at this new uni, thank you. I was actually at this uni first, then switched to the one this guy worked at, so now I'm back at the OG. And IDK why I ever left, TBeek. This sounds weird, but I'm low-key hoping he continues being a creep so he'll do it to the wrong woman, and she'll be smarter about it than I was. But yeah, it was insane to me, because honestly, that post is from like late 2021, and by 2022, I was at a new uni, moved on, completely forgot about it. And then today, I'm on the treadmill listening to a podcast and hear that being read out. Like? The commenter replied, I'm glad you're doing better. That must have felt surreal to have your story of what crazy shoot happened to you in a video happen. I remember watching the video when it came out. I responded. I immediately just picked up my phone and rewound and started looking for the info. I would have heard it sooner too, but I only listened to podcasts at the gym, and I've not gone in the last couple weeks. It was so wild. Am I the idiot for telling my controlling boyfriend to buzz off over my coffee preferences? I take a long time to drink my coffee, and as a result, sometimes it gets cold before I finish it. I don't mind cold coffee, so I drink it anyway. My boyfriend thinks this is disgusting. He doesn't like coffee anyway. He told me that he doesn't want me to drink my coffee that way because it disgusts him. I told him that it's me who's drinking it. Why should he care? He insisted that it is disgusting, and if I don't want you to drink a cup of coffee around the house, then you don't. And the good old my house, my rules. He compared it to him not wanting guests to smoke in his house or taking off shoes at the door. However, I told him that those examples are not comparable because secondhand smoke is still harmful, and wearing dirty shoes in the house makes the floor dirty for everyone else's feet. How I drink a cup of coffee does neither. I lost my cool and told him to go F himself for being controlling. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments. One commenter said, NTA, has he ever heard of iced coffee? Why are you living with him? Then the original poster replied, I don't even live with him. We are in a long-distance relationship, and this is when I stayed with him in his parents' house over 2 weeks. Another commenter said, Here, you dropped these. Trying to control how you drink your coffee is a huge red flag. Definitely don't give in, but it'll only get worse from here. What you can and can't eat, what you can and can't wear, who you can and can't see, etc. Not the idiot. Another commenter mentioned the narcissist's prayer and said, I'm sorry you found it as a controlling act. Oh Lord. The verdict was, not the jerk. Now for the same day update, I showed him the comments and he conveniently came up with the excuse, I am sorry you found it as a controlling act. I said that because not being used to coffee, I can smell its odor, so I don't want the odor to spread around the house. I've told him that it's not a matter of me seeing it that way. He is being controlling and it's unacceptable. He keeps asking me to explain why, even though I feel like I have about 1 million times. I said that I've explained enough, and I'm not interested in talking until he takes responsibility. Now for more comments. One commenter said, regarding your update, he's framing this as a matter of your opinion and pretending not to understand in order to avoid admitting what's obvious to everyone on this sub. This is because he already knows he's behaving badly and is doing it on purpose and wants to continue doing it because it benefits him. Big, big, big red flags. Please get away from him. Not the idiot. He's controlling and manipulative. The original poster replied, "Thank you for your input. Can I ask what it is you think he's benefiting from?" The commenter responded, "He gets to control you. Maybe not on everything, but the longer you stay and the more controlling behavior you tolerate, the more will slip under the radar and the more you'll end up meeting his unreasonable demands. You'll decide, not even consciously, that you would rather do what he wants than fight him on some small issue, and then another small issue, and then a big one. And meanwhile, he will not be making efforts to please and accommodate you. You may even start to question yourself and internalize his viewpoint. It's never about cold coffee. It's about power. Manipulators and controlling people never start with, be my 24/7 maid who I have intimacy with but who never gets off herself, who gives me children if I'm into that, who isn't allowed to have money or a job or talk to her friends and family, and who lives miles or countries away from anybody who might help her get out of this hurtful relationship. They don't start there. They start with, you drink coffee the wrong way, and I'm so very sorry that you were irrational about my coffee request. If you had pointed out how many people think he was a jerk about the coffee, and he had gone, "Oh wow, yeah, I was being a jerk, I'm sorry," and then not done it again, then that would be one thing. But what you posted about his response sent chills down my spine. That is not the response of a mostly well-meaning guy. That is the response of a guy who will twist reality in knots to get what he wants. Another commenter said, "Fuck no, that guy sounds like a jerk. He sounds like a chauvinist pig and he doesn't deserve you." Quick question. Surely you knew whether or not you were the jerk before you posted this? The original poster replied, "I was sure that I was not the jerk, but he doesn't take responsibility and instead assumes it's because of my past emotionally hurtful relationship." Another commenter said, "That's called gaslighting. Your current boyfriend is emotionally harassing you. You're breaking up with him, right?" The original poster replied, "I told him about the comments and he said, 'I am sorry that you found it as a controlling act. I said that because, not being used to coffee, I can smell its odor. So I don't want the odor to spread around the house. I told him it's not a matter of how I see it. His behavior is unacceptable. He keeps asking me to explain why, even though I feel like I've already explained 1,000,000 times. I eventually said that I'm not interested in talking until he takes full responsibility. He just said, 'I am deeply sorry. What I did was criticism over a small thing like drinking coffee, and I must have made you feel unaccepted and imperfect. Something like this should never become a constant dynamic in any relationship. I take full responsibility for what happened. What do I do?' The commenter responded, 'It's entirely up to you, but I can promise you this will not be the first or last time he does this. His apology sounds like he's telling you what you want to hear, so you'll drop it. He's sorry that you found his behavior controlling. He's not sorry for being controlling. There is a very clear difference.'" Now for the 19-day update. Someone posted my boyfriend's social media page as a comment, now deleted in the original post. Unfortunately, my boyfriend still received some nasty messages, which was never meant to happen, regardless of who was at fault. If you are the person who did this, you are the jerk. Big time. Why on earth would you do that? What if I was in a dangerously hurtful relationship? That could have put my life in danger. My boyfriend, even though I showed him the original post while there were 6 comments, blamed me for this person's behavior and accused me of allowing cyberbullying. He also did not agree with any of the comments. I told him I understand why he's upset and that I am upset too, because I truly believed it was completely anonymous, and I did all I could to remove the comment as soon as I saw it. He did not agree with any of the comments and said that I am the one who is controlling. He also said that what I did is unforgivable, as well as irresponsible and reckless. I said I needed to be alone to think about things. After I thought about everything that happened, I asked him if we could talk the next day. Despite what happened, I felt it would be the decent thing to talk on the phone. I feel he responded pretty aggressively, saying things like, "I am ready now." don't know about tomorrow. He told me to write it down as I preferred to have a mob go at him, to text him tomorrow to check when he's available, and that he's not at my disposal. I told him to please stop being aggressive. It's unreasonable to expect me to guess when he's available, and that the point of asking when he's available is to appreciate he may have other things to do. I sent him a voice recording because I felt that he would turn aggressive on the phone. I told him that I think we are on different paths and it would be for the best to end this relationship. Apparently, by that point, he already decided to end the relationship, but then said later that he was willing to give me a second chance and that his love was stronger. He said that he made grave mistakes and that he feels sorry, but he doesn't want to be with someone who doesn't let him be himself. Okay, I hope that gives him the closure he needs. Then I had a cup of coffee. Now for a few important comments. One commenter asked, "Just a question here. Did you make you and your boyfriend identifiable in the post? How would anyone have known it was your boyfriend to share his social media, other than him when you showed him the post and responses?" Another commenter suggested, throwing out the theory here that he posted his own social media in there to manipulate the situation and distract it from him being wrong. It's no longer about him being controlling about coffee, but makes you feel bad and puts you at fault for making the Reddit post. I responded, "No, I didn't post any identifiable information. No names, no locations, nothing. Just a conversation. I thought perhaps someone found my social media page through a picture I posted of myself and found him that way, so I deleted it. I also thought that it might have actually been him because I sent him a screenshot of my original post when there were only 6 comments, and he didn't seem to have anything wrong with what I wrote. In fact, he kept asking if more people commented. He told me that someone gave him the link to the post. I never hid the post from him." The first commenter replied, "Really strange. I think it was him to be a. But gal, I see in the comments you are now free to enjoy your lukewarm coffee in peace." I then said, "Yeah, on second thought, I should have asked him to send me a screenshot of what messages he received. Thank you. I definitely did." Another commenter added, "He definitely posted that shoot himself." Finally, the top comment was, "My wife leaves her coffee until it's stone cold. I call her weird in a joking way. Then I get the frick on with my life, because her drinking her coffee cold doesn't impact my life in the slightest."